The map lies folded on my desk, its edges worn from months of anticipation. A relic of a plan that promised escape but delivered terror. Alageny National Forest, its name scrawled in faded ink, was supposed to be our sanctuary. A 3-day retreat from the grind of Pittsburgh's concrete and deadlines. Sarah and I had dreamed of this trip for months, picturing starlit skies, the scent of pine, and the kind of silence only the deep woods can offer. Our dog, Andy, was to be our joyful companion, his boundless energy a reminder of simpler pleasures. But the forest had other plans, ones that no map could chart, ones that left us running for our lives, haunted by sounds and sights that defy explanation. This is not a story of adventure gone awry, of storms or bears or human error. This is a story of something else, something that lurks in the spaces between trees, that watches with unblinking eyes, that speaks in hollow clicks no human throat could form. It's a story I've tried to forget, but the memory clings like damp earth, inescapable. As I write, the GoPro footage sits on my hard drive, its corrupted files a mocking reminder of what we saw, what we fled. This is the tale of our descent into Alageny, where the forest revealed its secrets, and we learned that some places are not meant for the living. Have you ever ventured into a place that felt wrong, where the air itself seemed to warn you to leave? Would you stay to uncover its secrets, or flee before it was too late? The gravel crunched under our tires as we pulled into the small parking area at the edge of Allegheny National Forest. For hours from Pittsburgh, the late afternoon sun filtered through towering pines, casting dappled light on the ground. Sarah's face lit up, her exhaustion from the drive melting away. "We're here," she said, her voice bright with relief. Andy, our golden retriever, whined anxiously in the back seat, his paws scrabbling at the window. For the last half hour, his restlessness had been a constant, a low hum of unease I attributed to the long drive. "Someone's excited," I said, unlocking the doors. Sarah opened the back, and Andy bolted out, tail wagging furiously as he sniffed the dirt and pine needles, his nose mapping this new world. We'd planned this trip meticulously, craving 3 days of isolation, no cell service, no hospital emergencies for Sarah, no last-minute client revisions for me. My graphic design job had become a treadmill of impossible deadlines, each project bleeding into the next. Sarah, a pediatric nurse, had endured a brutal month at the hospital, understaffed shifts, sick children, and the emotional weight of too many bad outcomes. This was our reset, a chance to reconnect with each other and the outdoors. The air smelled of pine and loamy earth, a sharp contrast to the city's exhaust and sterility. I breathed deeply, feeling the knot in my chest loosen. Too long staring at screens, too long indoors. "Let's get moving before it gets too late," Sarah said, already pulling her backpack from the trunk. I grabbed Andy's leash and our tent, while Sarah organized food supplies, dried pasta, sausages, marshmallows, a bottle of wine for toasting our escape. I checked the trail map one last time, its lines promising a path to a clearing 2 miles in. "The trail gets faint about a mile out," I said, slinging my pack over my shoulders. "But it should lead to a good spot." Sarah cinched her pack tight, grinning. "Lead the way, wilderness man." With Andy tugging eagerly, we stepped onto the narrow trail winding into the trees, the forest swallowing us whole. The trail was well marked at first, wooden posts guiding us through a cathedral of pines. The ground was soft with needles muffling our steps. Andy bounded ahead, his leash taut, nose low as he explored. Sarah walked beside me, her ponytail swinging, her hiking boots kicking up small clouds of dust. "This is already worth it," she said, brushing a low branch aside. I nodded, my camera bouncing against my chest, ready to capture the beauty of this place. For a moment, it felt like the trip we'd imagined, peaceful, grounding, ours. But as we pushed deeper, the trail grew vague, the posts sparser. By the second mile, it was barely a suggestion, a faint thread weaving between trees. The forest thickened, branches interlocking overhead, dimming the sunlight. "You sure we're not lost?" Sarah asked, pushing a branch from her face, her tone light but edged with doubt. I checked the small compass clipped to my pack, its needle steady. "Trust me," I said, though I felt a flicker of unease. "The clearing's just ahead." 5 minutes later, the trees parted, revealing a wide, flat area bordered by tall pines. A circle of stones marked a fire pit, left by previous campers. "Perfect," Sarah breathed, dropping her pack and rolling her shoulders. Andy circled the clearing, nose to the ground, claiming every inch. We fell into our camping rhythm. I pitched our 4-person tent. Overkill for 2 people and a dog, but we loved the extra space. Driving stakes deep into the earth, remembering a Michigan storm that nearly flattened our shelter. Sarah set up our compact camping stove on a flat rock, heating water for tea. By the time I'd arranged our sleeping bags and collected firewood, the sun was sinking, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet. I built a fire in the stone circle, the flames crackling to life as Sarah pulled out our camp chairs. "This is perfect," she said, settling in as the fire grew. "I needed this so badly." The hospital had drained her, the weight of her patients' suffering lingering in her silences. My own job had been a relentless cycle of revisions for a client who couldn't decide what he wanted. Andy flopped between our chairs, eyes half closed but ears alert, twitching at distant forest sounds. Rustles, bird calls, the whisper of wind. "Hungry?" I asked, reaching for the cooler. "Starving," Sarah replied, her smile returning. I threaded sausages onto metal skewers, while Sarah opened the wine, pouring it into plastic cups. "To disconnecting," she said, raising hers. "To remembering what matters," I replied, touching my cup to hers. The sausages sizzled, fat dripping into the flames, Andy's nose twitching hopefully. We both slipped him scraps, pretending the other didn't notice. As darkness settled, the fire cast a warm glow, the forest beyond fading to black. We roasted marshmallows, their golden crusts melting on our tongues. "Look up," I said, pointing through a gap in the trees. The sky was a tapestry of stars, thousands more than Pittsburgh's light-polluted haze allowed. The longer we stared, the more appeared, as if the darkness were unveiling its depths. "That's Cassiopeia," I said, tracing the W-shaped constellation. "And the Big Dipper." Sarah squeezed my hand, teasing, "Show off," but her voice softened. "We should do this more often." The forest wasn't silent, but its sounds were alive. Whined through pine needles, an owl's distant hoot, the fire's snap. Absent was the city's hum. Traffic, sirens, electronics. "We could make it monthly," I suggested. "Different parks each time." Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'd like that." We talked for hours about places we wanted to visit, work frustrations, plans for the year, conversations we were too tired for at home. As midnight neared, the fire burned to embers, and Sarah hid a yawn. "Ready for bed?" I asked. She nodded, and we doused the fire, ensuring every ember was out. Inside the tent, Andy circled 3 times before settling at our feet. Our sleeping bags zipped together, Sarah curled against me, her breathing slowing. Through the mesh window, stars peeked between branches. The forest's gentle sounds, wind, Sarah's breaths, Andy's sighs, lulled me. The ground was hard, but my body relaxed, tension draining from my shoulders. I thought of how grateful I was to be here, far from demands and deadlines, unaware that the forest's peace was a fragile illusion, soon to be shattered by something unnatural. I woke at 3 a.m., the tent dark, something wrong. Not the usual discomfort of camping, the hard ground, strange sounds, but a deeper unease, like a weight on my chest. Sarah slept beside me, one arm across her face, breathing steadily. I lay still, trying to pinpoint what had woken me. Then I noticed it. The wind rustling the pines above, their branches creaking, but the tent's nylon walls were motionless. No breeze touched us, despite the tree's movement. I sat up, careful not to wake Sarah, and grabbed my flashlight from beside my pillow. Unzipping the tent quietly, I slipped outside. The night air was strange. Wind in the treetops, but the ground was still, no whisper of a breeze on my skin. The campfire was cold, not a glow in the ashes. I swept my flashlight across the clearing. Camp chairs, firewood stack, cooler, all normal. Andy pushed his nose through the tent's partially open door, squeezing out to join me. But his posture was wrong. Hackles raised, tail low, ears forward, staring into the darkness beyond our camp. "What is it, boy?" I whispered, following his gaze with my flashlight. The beam caught only trees and underbrush. Then it came, click, click, click. A hollow wooden sound, like someone tapping a stick, but with an empty quality that didn't belong in the woods. Click, click, pause, click, click, click. Andy pressed against my leg, growling softly. I froze, tracking the sound as it moved through the trees, circling our campsite at a distance. The rhythm was irregular, starting and stopping without pattern. "Hello," I called, keeping my voice low. "Someone there?" The clicking stopped instantly. I waited, flashlight aimed where the sound had been. The forest was silent. No insects, no animals, just an oppressive quiet. I took a few steps toward the trees, but Andy backed toward the tent, whining. The clicking resumed from a different direction. Click, 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 click. I spun, my beam finding nothing but darkness. Heart pounding, I retreated to the tent, Andy ducking inside ahead of me. I zipped the door, sitting cross-legged on my sleeping bag, flashlight in one hand, pocket knife in the other. Sarah slept on, oblivious. The clicking continued, circling the clearing, sometimes seeming to come from multiple places, though I told myself it was echoes. For 2 hours, I stayed awake, Andy alert beside me, growling when the sound shifted. Around 5 a.m., as the sky lightened, the clicking faded, growing distant until it stopped. A breeze finally stirred the tent, and the forest's normal sounds returned. Exhausted, I fell asleep, knife still in hand. Sunlight streamed through the tent's mesh when Sarah woke me. "Morning," she murmured, stretching. "How'd you sleep?" "Not great," I admitted, rubbing my eyes. "Woke up around 3 o'clock, couldn't get back to sleep." I told her about the stillness, the moving trees, the clicking sounds, and Andy's reaction. Her expression shifted from concern to amusement. "Sounds like a vivid dream," she said, patting my arm. "Or maybe a woodpecker." "It wasn't a dream," I insisted. "Andy heard it too." She glanced at Andy, now curled at our feet, relaxed. "He seems fine now." Sarah stepped outside to start coffee, her casual dismissal stinging. Maybe she was right. My stressed brain conjuring meaning from normal sounds, the stillness a weather quirk. But as we ate breakfast, I noticed Andy stayed close, his eyes flicking to the treeline. I found myself doing the same, half expecting to hear that clicking again. "These pancakes are amazing," Sarah said, holding out her plate. I forced a smile, sliding one onto it. Nothing like breakfast outdoors, right? But the memory of those clicks lingered, their irregular rhythm replaying in my mind. We planned to hike to a lake an hour away, a clear goal to shake off the night's unease. I slipped my hunting knife into my pocket without telling Sarah, needing the reassurance of its weight. The trail was narrow, forcing a single file, Sarah pointing out plants and birds carefree. Andy stayed close, glancing back toward camp, his usual curiosity gone. The lake appeared after an hour, a clear expanse in a small valley, rocks along one shore, dense forest on the other. "Beautiful," Sarah breathed, unlacing her boots. "Last one in Cook's dinner." We swam in the cold water, Sarah laughing and splashing, but I couldn't relax. Andy paced the shore, refusing to join us, his eyes on the trees. "What's up with him?" Sarah asked, floating nearby. "Maybe tired from yesterday," I lied. We dried off on a flat rock, eating sandwiches and fruit. Sarah leaned back, soaking in the sun. "This is what I needed," she said. "No hospital, just this." I nodded, but my eyes scanned the forest, my hand brushing the knife. As we packed to leave, I calculated how long it would take to break camp if we needed to flee. The thought of another night with those clicks made my stomach churn. The hike back was quicker. Our muscles warmed. The campsite looked untouched. Tent, chairs, fire pit. But Andy hesitated at the clearing's edge, needing a tug to enter. "Maybe we should drive to a hotel tonight," I said, setting down my pack. Sarah turned, surprised. "A hotel? Why?" "The tent was warm last night," I offered weakly. "Might be nice to have air conditioning." Sarah laughed, but her eyes narrowed. "Since when do you bail on camping because it's warm? What's going on?" I wanted to tell her everything. The clicks, the stillness, Andy's fear, but her skepticism stopped me. "Nothing," I said. "Just a thought." She studied me, then shrugged. "Let's get dinner started." As the sun set, I built a fire, larger than needed, telling myself the light would keep the unknown at bay. Sarah handed me a cup of wine, noticing my tension. "You're jumpy," she said. "Still thinking about those clicks?" "Just being cautious," I replied, the wine doing nothing to calm me. Dinner was chicken and vegetables cooked in foil, but I barely tasted it, my eyes on the treeline. Sarah yawned around 9 o'clock. "Ready for bed?" I nodded, too tense to speak. Inside the tent, I placed my knife within reach, Andy settling stiffly at our feet. "Night," Sarah murmured, kissing my cheek. "Night," I whispered, knowing sleep was impossible. The forest sounded normal at first, crickets, night animals, but at 11:23 p.m., I dozed off, only to wake at 1:58 a.m. to silence. The crickets had stopped, the birds gone quiet. Andy's head snapped up, his body rigid. Then it began, click, 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 closer than the previous night, just outside the tent. I sat up, heart racing, as Andy growled softly. Click, 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 pause, click. The sounds came from multiple directions, not echoes but distinct sources, as if several entities were circling us. The rhythm was complex, clusters of rapid clicks followed by slow, deliberate ones like a conversation. Sarah stirred, mumbling, "Mike, shoo!" I whispered, touching her arm. She sat up, eyes wide. "What is that?" I pointed to the tent wall inches away. Click, 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 click. Andy's growl deepened, his fur bristling. Sarah grabbed my arm, whispering, "What makes a sound like that?" I shook my head, unable to speak. The clicks shifted, speeding up, slowing down, overlapping, as if communicating. For an hour, we sat frozen. Andy's growls the only sound we dared make. The clicks stopped for minutes at a time, each silence more terrifying, as if something waited just outside. At 3:22 a.m., I unzipped the tent door slightly, shining my flashlight. The clicking stopped instantly. The beam revealed nothing but trees. I zipped the door shut, and the clicks resumed, louder, closer, as if something had moved in while I looked away. By 4 a.m., the sounds were so near I felt vibrations through the ground. I held my knife, certain the tent would tear open. The clicks grew frantic, overlapping like an argument. Sarah clutched her phone, thumb over the emergency button, though we both knew help was hours away. As dawn lightened the sky, the clicks retreated, fading with the darkness. Normal forest sounds returned. Birds, animals, wind. Andy slumped, exhausted, and Sarah released my arm, leaving red marks. "They're gone," I whispered. "What were they?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," I said, reaching for the GoPro I'd set up inside the tent, its lens aimed at the entrance. With shaking hands, I played the GoPro footage starting at 2 a.m. The audio captured the clicks clearly, their hollow rhythm chilling in the morning light. At 3:42 a.m., Sarah gasped, pointing. I rewound, and there it was. A pale, elongated face pressed against the tent's mesh window, inches from the camera. Its skin was white, textured like feathers but not quite, with a beak-like protrusion where a mouth and nose should be. Its eyes, bulging, unblinking, white, reflected the camera's infrared, glowing in the dark. It stared for 30 seconds, head tilted unnaturally, then backed away, vanishing. Sarah screamed, scrambling back. "What was that?" she yelled. I couldn't answer, my throat tight with fear. "We need to leave," Sarah said, grabbing her backpack. "Now." I nodded. The creature's image burned into my mind. We packed frantically, abandoning non-essentials. Andy needed to go out, his discomfort clear. "I'll take him," I said, knife in hand. Outside, the morning mist clung to the ground, birds singing as if nothing had happened. Andy relieved himself at the clearing's edge, then froze, staring into the trees. I followed his gaze, seeing a flash of pale movement 50 yards away. There, then gone, moving with an unnatural gait. I yanked Andy back to the tent. "We're leaving," I told Sarah. "I saw something." We tore down the tent, leaving the stove and chairs. As we worked, Sarah froze. "Listen," she whispered. Click, click, click. In daylight, defying the night's rules. Andy barked, lunging toward the trees. Sarah screamed as a figure emerged. A man in a park ranger uniform, nameplate reading Wilson. "Good morning, folks," he called, raising a hand. "Everything okay?" I gripped my knife, noticing his lips didn't match his words, moving seconds after the sound. His steps were too even, his head turning too smoothly, like a machine. "We're fine," I said, voice tight, packing up to leave. He stepped closer, his eyes too wide, too white, unblinking, like the creature on the footage. His uniform was pristine, no dirt or wear. "I'm Ranger Wilson," he said, his voice flanging, two tones slightly off sync. "Patrolling for illegal campers. Bear sightings recently." Andy barked furiously, pulling against his leash. "Our dog doesn't usually react this way," Sarah said, forcing a smile. "Dogs sense bears," the ranger replied, his smile empty. "May I see your camping permit?" he asked, stopping 10 feet away. Sarah reached for her pack, but I grabbed her arm. "Something's wrong," I whispered. "Look at his eyes, his mouth." She stared, her face paling. The ranger tilted his head 90 degrees, an impossible angle, watching us whisper. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice lagging behind his lips. "No problem," I said, edging toward our packs. His expression flattened, the human mask slipping. "You must come with me," he said, his words dissolving into clicks. His face twitched, features rippling, the beak-like structure pushing through. "Car keys," I hissed to Sarah. She fumbled them from my pack. The ranger's movements grew jerky, its voice a mix of clicks and speech. "Must examine, must study. Run," I shouted, grabbing Andy's leash and Sarah's arm. We sprinted through the bushes, my backpack with the GoPro slung over my shoulder, abandoning the rest. Behind us, something crashed through the forest, branches snapping. No human footfalls, only clicks. Andy led us, my lungs burning, Sarah gasping beside me. The parking lot appeared, our car alone. I glanced back as we broke from the trees. The ranger's uniform split, pale, feathered flesh bursting through, its face half human, half beak, white eyes locked on us. Sarah fumbled the keys. I grabbed them, unlocking the car. I threw Andy in the back, Sarah diving into the passenger seat. The engine roared as the creature emerged, barely human, moving too fast. I slammed into reverse, then drive, tires spinning on gravel. In the rearview mirror, it stood in the road. Humanoid but wrong, too thin, joints bent unnaturally, beak-like face, white eyes unblinking. It didn't chase, just watched, head tilted, shrinking as we rounded a bend. Sarah sobbed, Andy whining in the back. "Did you see it?" she asked. "I saw it," I said, hands tight on the wheel. We didn't speak until the highway, the sun a fragile anchor to reality. "Never again," Sarah said, her voice raw. "Never," I agreed, speeding toward home. Back in Pittsburgh, we tried to resume normalcy, but the forest followed us. Sarah quit camping, her love for the outdoors tainted. Andy flinched at night sounds, his trust in the world broken. The GoPro footage, when I dared to check, was corrupted, Hours of static where the creature's face should have been. I sent the camera for repair, but the files were unrecoverable, as if the forest had erased its own evidence. Online forums offered theories: wendigos, skinwalkers, cryptids, but none fit the pale, beak thing with clicking speech. I dream of it sometimes, standing at our apartment window, white eyes glowing. Sarah wakes me, her hand on my arm, her own nightmares unspoken. We don't talk about Alageny, but it's there, a shadow between us. The map remains on my desk, a warning I can't discard. Something lives in those woods, something that studies, that mimics, that waits. We escaped, but I wonder if it let us go, if it's still watching, clicking in the dark. If you heard those clicks in the night, would you stay to face what made them or run, knowing some truths are too terrible to know?